Okay, so we're joined here today by Christopher Petefish, professional golfer. Also, we're going some coaching and consulting. A little background about Chris here. He is a Georgia Tech standout back in the day, two-time All-American. More recently, participated in the 2024 U.S. Open and a career best ranking in OWGR of 288th. So, Chris, thanks so much for taking the time to get on. How's it going?
Doing well. Thanks for having me and excited to be here talking with you.
Yeah, no, I mean, thanks for taking the time. You're a busy man between your playing and your other endeavors. So we'd love to get to know a little more about you, what you do. So just before we get into the coaching side of it, I mean, as a player, there's already a lot to talk about. Can you just tell us a little bit more about your journey as a player, a coach, a mentor, and like, kind of what led you to get into golf at this type of level in professional golf and all of that?
Yeah, I guess going back to my playing history, I picked up a club when I was 7 years old, and kind of the age where you're trying out all sports to see what you like. And I just loved golf from the start. Just the fact of, just kind of taught me to be a perfectionist and how good can I get at this sport. And it's really just all on you as a player. And, you know, from there, I had some good success as a junior player. I was, fifth in my recruiting class in high school and, ended up playing golf at Georgia Tech, part of some awesome teams there. Had some good success in like amateur summer events. I was ranked probably 45th in the amateur world rankings at some point in my senior year. And then, from there, I think, during that process, having some success in junior golf, it was just kind of natural. Like, hey, I want to see how good I can get at the sport. And like wherever that takes me is where it takes me. And it just kind of was a natural progression where it's like, okay, well, I think I can, turn pro and then see how this goes just based on the results I was having in amateur tournaments in college. And yeah, I turned pro in 2018 after playing 4 years at Tech and having a lot of great wins as a team and some success myself. And from there, I played a little bit on PGA Tour Canada for a couple years. I got through Q School in 2021 for the Korn Ferry Tour. Played on there for 3 years. Had some really good results. I was really one shot away from my card in 23. Finished like 44th, 45th on the points list. Had two runners ups that summer, and then lost my card last year. But that's how golf goes sometimes. Good years, bad years. Been playing some good golf this year on PGA Tour Americas. And so yeah, it's hard to like summarize your whole career, which has been most of my life, in like 4 to 5 minutes. But it's been an incredible journey. I feel like I've just met some amazing people. I've been able to travel the world and play courses I never thought I'd be able to play. And so it's one of those things. It's like, yeah, I'm doing this now, but if you told me like this is what's going to happen when I was 7, 8 years old, I'd been like, no way, like that's crazy. So definitely, pretty cool to be a part of this journey. And then as far as the mentoring side, yeah, like my parents have this company they've had for quite a while, Course of Action Golf, and they have done a lot of navigating, helping junior players on where to play, where to get noticed in terms of recruiting for college. And, I helped a little bit kind of during my college years with them on that. And they kind of had this opportunity this season to kind of expound on that from the perspective of a player performance coach, through strokes gain analysis, through platforms like Upgame and helping players kind of achieve their full potential of everything that I could go back and tell my 15, 18-year-old self on like, okay, this is how you have to operate as a professional, as a great college player, as an only junior player if you want to make it to the next level.
Yeah, and I mean from that crazy journey, because I mean you've done a lot of what so much of those kids are just dreaming of doing someday, even just maybe once, and haven't had a career in that. What are some philosophies, some principles that you're trying to emphasize to those younger players?
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of principles and philosophies. I think really understanding not only your game, but really like the principles of scoring and how to get the ball in the hole. Like, this game is so much more about avoiding bogey, especially avoiding doubles, is so key for a lot of junior players. And really understanding your dispersions is something that probably isn't talked about enough. I know Upgame has that with diamonds, but yeah, that's something I really hammer into like my students is like, man, like a lot of people just take into account like, hey, if I hit great shots to these, aggressive targets near the hole, like I'm gonna have a great day. But it's like, dude, if I hit the shot 50 times with an 8 iron, like I have to account for all of them, and like use understanding your dispersions and like where are my tendencies is like a way to kind of like almost another level of the game of understanding of how to play golf, how to score. Um, there's a great book that I read from Josh Waitzkin. It was The Art of Learning. And it's just, he was a grandmaster chess player, turned into like Tai Chi martial arts and was world class. And it was a lot of him talking about like natural flow and not being able to force it. And that's what a lot of golf is like you just can't force it. It's just not a sport you can be physical with. There's no opponent. And it's just, I think understanding a lot of those principles, understanding how to score, understanding your game is really key to being like having consistent performance.
Yeah, no, I mean that's spot on. And I think it's becoming that much more critical now because it just feels like there's more and more talent out there where
There,
everyone gets to a point they're hitting the ball pretty similar. So what you're touching on here with understanding your game, how to optimize your shot patterns, your target selections is it's starting to be like really the key factor because everyone has access to similar technologies across the board. But I mean, as far as different technologies and going into game management now, just going to touch a little bit on Upgame, how you've started using it both, as a player, as a coach, how has that integrated into how you approach the game, whether it's for you, even for your players, what has it done for their performance?
yeah, no, I would say just the details that Upgame has is so nice from not only like I would just start from my perspective. Like for me, it like confirms a lot of my priors of like how I'm feeling about my game as someone that's like understood strokes gained for a long time. And so it's good to like kind of confirm, oh, what I'm seeing on the data is kind of what I'm feeling. But it also is somewhat nice for like expectation management because there's sometimes where I mean like, oh, just didn't feel like I hit my irons that good today, blah, blah, blah. And then I go back and look at the data. It's like, okay, well, compared to myself, like I shouldn't be so hard on myself. I actually had a pretty decent day. Those are the kind of things it's like, especially when you're playing tour golf and you're going week to week to week, like seeping in a couple like doubts here and there may affect you like long term as the season goes on because all it takes is like a little bit of doubt to creep in and then you miss a cut and then things can snowball so fast. And so just having that baseline in that technology like Upgain has is like, man, I'm really on top of like managing my game and like almost like an MRI machine. Like I just have a really good X-ray of like what is happening. I'm not guessing. I am. It just makes it much more efficient when I practice, what to look for, with the time that I have, but also with coaching students. Like, hey, the data's clear. It's not overly complicated. Like I feel like I'm not talking to code with these people. It's easy to understand. And so, yeah, it just makes like solving the root problem, not problem, but like when you diagnose someone's game, it's like you're able to get to solutions much easier.
Yeah. Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, it's becoming such a key aspect of performance golf, now because everyone is using, I mean, not everyone's using Upgame, but everyone's using a variant of stat platforms and really using it to kind of find direction in what they're doing. And I think what you just touched on here with the mental side of it is, I think not brought up enough of keeping that confidence for a player of just being able to think that you're actually maybe not doing that bad while also still having, kind of the right expectation of what's going on. And and I mean, I think from that perspective of our whole industry of golf statistics, how are you seeing different like technology, data driven platforms? How do you see that kind of shaping shaping coaching and even just high level performance in the years to come, just from your side of things?
Yeah, I mean, I think the technology as a whole is crazy. Even like comparing my, I guess you could say, generation of guys in their late 20s, early 30s to those college kids coming up. Just think about the speed that these kids have now and how far they hit the ball. Because I
Crazy.
think they've just understood. Yeah, it's crazy. I think they've really understood the how to use the ground, and TPI is much more prevalent, and they were taught as they were 8 years old, and that really wasn't taught when I was 7, 8 years old. And so just stuff like that. I mean, you look at it other sports as well, like just people, there's more as technology grows, there's more information, more knowledge, there's more leaps and bounds in performance. So it's like it's not just golf. Like this is happening in other sports for sure. And we talk about sleep and all these other things that you can now track much more efficiently. Like it's just a natural evolution of where things are going in performance. Of like how do we get better? How do we, stretch ourselves? But as far as like the coaching, like yeah, it was obviously when you have better information, you're able to solve problems quicker. So like having something like the diamonds and up game where it's like, hey, as a as a player, I can go either as a student, as one of my students, or as myself, like, hey, I'm gonna take this information to my coach and be like, this is exactly what's happening with my like 7 iron through 5 iron. Like these are the missed patterns. Like, this is the information I'm telling my coach. So I'm not guessing when I go to a lesson, say, hey, maybe I feel like I'm pulling it, maybe I'm doing this, and then you might just be working on the wrong thing for 60 minutes of wasting your time. Instead, like now you have the information to be like, I know exactly what's happening with my, shot patterns, with my tendencies, or maybe it's even a specific club that's like, hey, look at this hybrid. Like I'm hitting it pretty well, but my hybrid is, like off the map. Like we need to maybe adjust, you know, the loft. We need to adjust the shaft or something. But it just takes guessing out of it, which is like if you can remove variables like that, it's obviously helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, speaking of diamonds and, you've mentioned a couple times, would you say that's probably what you've been using the most just from, from the Upgame platform, whether it's for you or for players, and maybe give us a couple words on, maybe a couple instances where it's really helped, whether it's a player or whether even just you from your own playing.
Yeah, no, it's a really cool system where obviously like I'm able to see on a little diamond that where all these shots are ending up with each club compared to my target or there's also dispersion compared to the to where I was intending to hit it, which is a whole nother conversation. But yeah, I think for me like I remember like my gap wedge, I had a lot of misses to the right. I was noticing a slight pattern, and I really just kind of found out like uh, my club had just the line angle had bent a little bit from travel. It was a little flat, and then so I just started missing stuff right, and I was like, all right, well, I'm glad I noticed that with diamonds, and then just kind of was able to adjust it a degree and was able to see some improvement. And so that's something like that is pretty key because you could also one, not notice it, but two, you have to know what to do with that information because, you might just be like, oh, I need to change my swing now. It's like, oh no, well, your line angle just got bent. But, to have the information, like, if I didn't have up game or, 15 years ago, when this stuff didn't exist, I might be sitting there like, oh, I got to change my swing because I'm missing all these wedges, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's a good lesson for all the junior golfers out there. If you're traveling with your clubs, check your lofts and lies because it might
The
not be.
airlines, some of them care, some of them do not care about your clubs.
Yeah, that's fair. But I mean, now just to as a kind of closing question here, and going opening it up a little more generally, what advice would you have to give to whether it's other professional golfers, coaches, juniors on, what would you tell them if they're wanting to take things to the next level as far as playing professional golf, going into performing at a higher level?
I would say it's just that. I mean, A, you have to believe in yourself. But then you have to kind of believe in the processes that you have. Like start operating like a professional going into college, in college. Like don't wait to start, prepping, thinking of the game as a PGA Tour player would. You have a lot of catching up to do. So it's like you have to start operating like one sooner, whether that's how you train, how you practice, take care of your body. how well can you understand data such as strokes gained? That, it really, all this stuff adds up, like the little shots, even tenths of shots that separate good from great when there's so much talent in the game. So yeah, I think an easy one is again is like using a platform like Upgame to really understand like, hey, how should I best practice? Where are my strengths? How do I utilize that? Where are the areas that I can improve? Like, hey, I'm just wasting shots in this area. Um, but yeah, I mean, those are little things that are going to matter when the ball goes so straight now. Everyone hits it so far. It gets harder to separate yourself. And B, there's just so much talent.
Yeah, wow, that's great, great way to cap this out. Chris, thanks so much for taking the time. We know you're very busy in everything you're doing. Can't thank you enough. And here before we hop off, for anyone who wants to follow what you're doing or maybe is considering needing your services for what they do, where can we find you?
Yeah, you can find me at courseofactiongolf.com. Got my website there, pretty easy to navigate. I'm also on Instagram, Chris Petefish Golf. You can kind of follow what I'm doing. I'll talk about some, strokes game principles and whatnot on there and some entertainment. So yeah,
Awesome, Chris. Thanks so much for your time. Good luck for the rest of the year.
yeah, appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.